Okay, Math 3, Notes, Unit 11, Section D. Coming at you live from 559.
Okay, so today we're talking about laws of logarithms. And we're going to end up solving equations with logarithms in them. And sometimes you're going to want to condense, like where you have multiple logs in an equation, you want to condense them to a single log. Or sometimes you're going to want to expand them. So from being condensed, small, to making them big. Basically, how I remember these is that multiplication and addition go together. So if you notice here, m and n are multiplying together. Okay, and so you can separate them and they become two logs that are adding. So multiplication goes to two logs adding. When you have division, it goes to, it's right there, subtraction. Is that tough? Okay, so division and subtraction go together. Okay? The last thing is that anytime you have an exponent, the exponent can be brought to the front. And so then it's like saying n times log base b of m, or if you had a number in front, that can also be brought up as the exponent. Please make sure you're taking notes with us on this. It will be on your final. Okay. All right. So this first part is that we are going to expand them. So we're going to make them bigger. Okay? What are these two doing right now? What are the 7 and the x doing? They're multiplying. So when we expand them, we're going to end up changing them to addition. So 7 and x, that's two terms. So this is going to become log base 3 of 7 plus log base 3x. And that's it.
That's it?
Mm-hmm. And it will become slightly more complicated as you get more terms. Again, here, these are multiplying. This is going to end up taking 2 steps. So we're going to start with writing this as log 6. And what base does this have when it doesn't have a base? Do you guys remember?
10.
Good, 10. Plus log of x to the third. And when you're expanding, any time you have an exponent here, you will bring the exponent to the front. And so this actually becomes log 6 plus 3 log x. Do we have questions? Okay. This next one is slightly more complicated because there are a lot more terms here. Specifically, how many terms do you see? 4. There is the 6, there's the x's, there's the y's, and the z's. Now, the z has a root. The first thing I would do with the root is change that to an exponent. Do you guys remember how to change roots into exponents? Yeah, so I'm going to rewrite this as log base 5 of 6x to the 2/3, y to the third, and then z is going to be to the 1/2. Remember that if your root doesn't say a number, it's a 2. And if the z doesn't have an exponent there, it's a 1. And so the exponent goes to the top and the root part goes to the denominator. Okay, so now we're going to separate them. So we will have log base 5 of 6 plus log base 5 of x to the 2/3 plus log base 5 of y to the third. Can we stop having other conversations, please? Plus log base 5 of z to the 1/2. Okay, and then the last thing would be to do what? Good. Any exponents, you would end up moving them to the front. So the 2/3 gets brought to the front, the 3 is going to get brought to the front, and the 1/2 gets brought to the front.
Did you keep it as 2/3?
Yes. So we have log base 5 of 6 plus 2/3 log base 5 of x plus 3 log base 5 of y plus 1/2 log base 5 of z. And that is your final answer. Okay, so multiplication changes to what? Addition. And if you have an exponent, the exponent gets brought to the front. Okay? So, with logs, when you're solving log equations, sometimes we have to expand them, and sometimes we have to condense them in order to find the answers. So right now we are practicing expanding them, and then we're going to practice condensing them. And then tomorrow we'll actually work on solving equations where all of this kind of ties together. Okay, so on this next example, there is division. Okay, so division's going to turn to subtraction. So when we first write this, and remember ln stands for natural log. Okay, natural log, and we talked about this briefly, but natural log is always base e. We don't usually write base e for it, but natural log can only be base e. It can't be any other base, where a log can be any base. If you notice on your calculators, see right here what has ln, that's your natural log, and if you notice above it, it has e to the x power because that's the base it's dealing with. Logs, we know, always are dealing with base, or the basic one is base 10, and so if you notice it has 10 to the x above it. Okay, so when we're rewriting this, natural log of 5x squared, and it's going to be minus natural log of y to the third. So now that I've taken care of the division, I'm noticing here that I need to expand this further because we have the 5 and the x squared. So how will I write that? Actually, the 5 goes with as 1, and then the x squared will be 1. So we would start by writing this as the natural log of 5 plus the natural log of x squared minus the natural log of y to the third. And then now that they're all single terms there, we can move each of our exponents to the front of each of the logs. And so we end up with the natural log of 5 plus 2 natural log of x minus 3 natural log of y as our final answer. Do you want to ask me any questions? So we're just like expanding and condensing. It's just like two languages. We're just writing the same thing in a different form. Okay? Yes?
When you expanded the second time, why did you add 5 and x instead of subtracting those two?
Because these are multiplying right here. So multiplication always changes to addition. Okay? All right, any other questions? Okay, so on this one, do you notice how the root 3 has both of these terms underneath it? So we're going to start by rewriting that as an exponent, but we need the whole 9x squared is being raised to what power? Not 3, but 1/3. Okay? So a cubed root is 1/3, a square root is 1/2, a fourth root is 1/4. Okay? Now, what you have to be careful about on this one is that this 1/3 is going to the 9 and the x squared. And so on this one, we're going to take care of this exponent first, and we're going to bring it to the front here. And so it's going to be 1/3, and you have to keep your parenthesis because this 1/3 is going to everything, and we have log base 7 of 9x squared. Okay, then we're going to expand it again, and we know that multiplication changes to what? Addition. So we have 1/3, and it's going to be log base 7 of what? 9 plus log base 7 of x squared. And then the last thing we do is bring that 2 in front. And so we have 1/3 log base 7 of 9 plus 2 log base 7 of x. Are there questions on this one? Okay, so now we're going to move to the back where we are going to be condensing. And more often you condense than expand. Okay? So we're basically working backwards from what we just did. So anytime you notice a number in front, what are you going to do with that? You're going to end up making it an exponent. So let's rewrite that. We have log base 4 of x to the 5th power minus log base 4 of 3. Now, subtraction goes with what? Division. So we're trying to condense this and write it as a single log. And so all we're going to do is end up writing these as division. The first number goes on top. The second one goes to the bottom. And so you have log base 4 of x to the 5th power over 3. And that's your answer. Okay, so on this next one right here, what do you think we're going to do first? Okay, so the first thing you always want to do is anytime you have a number in front, that number is going to end up becoming what? An exponent. So I'm going to rewrite this as the natural log of 50 plus the natural log of 1/5 to the 2nd power plus the natural log of x to the 3rd power. Okay, what will we do now? Change them to multiplication. Good. Okay, so natural log of 50 times 1/5 to the 2nd power times x to the 3rd. What do you think we should do now? Yeah, you want to simplify if you can. And so you would start here. What is 1/5 squared? 1 over 25, because 1 times 1 is 1, 5 times 5 is 25. Do we agree? Okay. And so we still have 50, and then we have x to the 3rd. Well, what will happen with the 50 and the 25? They're going to reduce. Good. And so 25 goes into 50 how many times? 2. And so we end up with the natural log of 2x to the 3rd. And that would end up being your final answer. Okay. I would like you guys to give this one a try on your own. So start with your exponents and then simplify anything that you can. Okay, are you guys good? So what did you get as your final answer? Good, and you would want to simplify the 2 to the 4th, and so it should end up being log base 5 of 16 over x cubed. So the first thing you should have done was moved up the exponents, and so I have log base 5 of 2 to the 4th power minus log base 5 of x to the 3rd. Okay, subtraction when we're condensing becomes division. So we have log base 5 of 2 to the 4th over x to the 3rd. And then the last step would be to simplify, and we get log base 5 of 16 over x to the 3rd power. You actually need to go to the library annex.
Okay.
And so they want you to go over there and do your testing.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Or here, you want to take that?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Any questions here? Okay, so this next one, because this whole thing is in parentheses, that means that this third power is actually going to go to everything inside. So I would start by, you could move it up here and write a 3 there. But when you rewrite this, this is actually log base 4 of 10 to the third power minus log base 4 of 5 to the third power. Because that's in parentheses, all of that is going to the third power. Okay? Plus, and then you have this 0.5. What is 0.5 really? How would we normally write that? Yeah, 1/2. And so that's log base 4 of 9 to the 1/2 power. Are there any questions about that so far? Okay, so subtraction means what?
Division.
Division. And so what you might want to end up doing is maybe doing this piece first. Okay? Because when you're doing adding or subtracting or multiplying and dividing, you're working left to right. Okay? And so I have log base 4 of 10 to the third power divided by 5 to the third power. And I'm just going to keep this plus right now of log base 4 of 9 to the 1/2. Okay? Now when we're simplifying this, what is 10 to the third power? Yes, it's 1,000. Divided by, and what's 5 to the third power? 125. And can that simplify? So 1,000 divided by 125 is what? So if you have a calculator, you can type in 1,000 and divide it by 125. And you should get 8. And then we have plus log base 4 of 9 to the 1/2. Okay, and then addition, what does that change to? So we have log base 4 of 8 times 9 to the 1/2 power. Well, in this case, we would deal with the 9 to the 1/2 first. What is 9 to the 1/2? That really means the square root of 9. What is the square root of 9? 3. So we have log base 4 of 8 times 3. And my final answer will be what? Log base 4 of 24. Okay, do we have any questions on that?